We're going to look at a glue up now, a simple glue up. Now, glue ups can get very big and complicated and difficult, but the principles we look at here can be extended to more complicated and larger situations. I'm going to show you what we're working with first. First, and most importantly, is to use paper below what you're doing, this coated paper, or anything really. Not just to protect the table, but to prevent yourself from gluing your workpiece to the table. I've done it. It's never stops being embarrassing. So I have paper. I have my parts, which in this case, like the joint exercise, are very squared off flat sections that are all equal. You don't have to be necessarily working with square sections like I am, but they should all be the same thickness in one dimension so that you can bring them together to achieve a flat surface. We also have glue, wood glue. We use the blue bottles, and a number of clamps. You can never have too many clamps. Have a bunch at your workspace. I also have a small putty knife, which is not always absolutely necessary, but we're going to see how it can help in this situation. So, when we glue two pieces of wood together, we want to put glue on both surfaces of them. So when you're working with a glue up like this, it helps to work from left to right or right to left or in whatever direction makes the most sort of, spatial and logical sense to you. Remember that you're not really finished the job until you clamp everything up and it's set in place and you walk away. So you kind of have to work reasonably quickly if you're working with a lot of pieces that you're gluing up all at once, or if you're gluing up too many, say 20, you might want to do it in chunks and then bring the big chunks together later. So how much glue do I put on? Well, not too little and not too much. I have it's kind of the amount of mustard that I actually enjoy um, on a hot dog. Enough to reasonably coat the piece. This might even be a little bit too much, but not too thick. It's hard to describe the amount without relying on mustard analogies, but you'll get the hang of it once you see what squeezes out at the end, which we'll look at. So I'm really quickly I am not gonna fast forward this. You're gonna watch me glue these up part by part. It's not a huge bead, but it's enough. When you use glue on both surfaces, you actually can use a little bit less. Both surfaces just to make sure that if there's a gap on one, you don't have a gap on both. This is kind of a badly finished surface here, so we'll see how this actually works. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I think it's okay. And then one more. The glue will remain wet. You have at least 5 minutes to work before you have to start worrying about things tacking up too much. But not a lot more than that. Okay. Once everything's glued, put it down on the table like I like. Press it together. Now you have another concern. I want to glue this up reasonably square, but because it is glue and is sort of a lubricant, the pieces can slide against each other, which when you apply pressure with clamps, they will often want to slide. So you can either try to do it and hope you don't get much sliding, or you can use something on the outside as a guide. Of course, I didn't bring clamps that are big enough for this job. Classic mistake. Be right back. Okay, we're back with bigger clamps and something I forgot that'll come in handy. So we're going to use one of these larger clamps just to get a grip on these outside bars. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on there. I'm just having it hold in place to keep things generally together. You don't need a whole lot. Notice that I angled this down, and you'll see why in a second. And then I'm going to actually clamp up the parts And I'm not putting any pressure on these clamps yet because I want to get right in here and show you if I can. Sorry. Is that a sufficient close-up? Yes. When I put pressure on the clamps, what you see happening here, this is squeeze out. And that right there is about the amount you want. Seeing that it's squeezing out of most areas, but not by a lot. That indicates that you have just the right amount of glue on there for the glue up that you're trying to do. Now, gluing is messy, right? Let's see if I can reconfigure so that we can see from a distance again. Gluing is messy, but glue is water soluble. So you do have the opportunity, while things are still wet, to take just water, the wet paper towel, and clean up excess squeeze out. The glue up this small, I can flip over easily, and you can see, yeah, there's squeeze out kind of everywhere on the back of it. And I'm going to clean up some of the glue on the paper so that I can put it down comfortably again. See why we have paper there. And that'll make your job of finishing and sanding and getting the glue off of that much easier. When you glue something up, the rule is that it needs 2 hours under pressure, and that you can unclamp after 2 hours, but then you want to wait 24 hours before you put any load on it. So if you're doing something like this, like a cutting board, it's perfectly fine to unclamp after 2 hours as long as you're not putting it through another tool or plating it or cutting it or doing anything else. If you're doing a joint that is carrying some kind of load or bending, you want to wait 24 hours before you do anything to it.